hopefully you read this main page here on the its details on the midterm exam. So typically I let my students use a page of notes front and back, and you can write whatever you want on that page of notes, and I suggest using like the study guide as an aid to know like what you want to write on it. I'll show you the study guide in a second. During the exam, you are allowed to use outside resources, or you are not allowed to use outside resources such as the internet textbook, phone friend, extra notes, etc. You can't use tutor. You can't use printouts of other things. But you can't, but you can have that page notes. You are not allowed to have somebody take the test for you. You are supposed to be the one taking it, and you're not allowed to use anything else that would give you an unfair advantage. So anything I didn't cover that's not this one page of notes. Okay. So even though the test is not proctored, meaning like you're not taking it here in person where I can watch you take it, or you're not taking it while somebody else watches you, it is timed. So you only have 2 hours to complete that exam. If you saw me write this before, if you have an ADA, meaning like you have paperwork filed with student services saying that you have some disability or something that requires you to have like extra time on the exam, let me know. They are not allowed to share that information with me, so you have to be the one that tells me that you have ADA, and I can add whatever extra time, 30 minutes, you can have an extra hour depending on what you have filed with student services, but it can't, it has to be filed. You only have one attempt. There are a few short answer questions. There's 3 of them, and I put them as the first question that you see when you start the midterm, so that you know that they're there. You might forget, and you get to the last question and see the short answers and freak out. So I put them first. You don't have to answer them first. You can go on and answer the multiple choice and come back, but just remember that you have 3 short answer questions to answer, and they're worth 5 points each, so total of 15. You have 70 multiple choice questions. They're worth 1.2 points each, so this totals to like 99 points. So I give you like 1 point just for taking it. And this midterm exam is worth 17.5% of your grade, your overall grade. Okay, midterm will be on this here. So chapters 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, no, not 2. Why is 2 on here? Whoops, we're not doing 2. It's on 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8. So I made a study guide. Let's see. I made a study guide that looks like this. Oops. So I organized it by chapter. This is on Moodle right now. You can download it. It's a Word document, so you can type in it if you want to take your notes that way. But this is just what you will see. And notice that like each thing is not very specific. It's kind of vague, but it's like concept that you need to know the ins and outs of. So I put down like scientific method. So make sure you know what the scientific method is, what it's used for, the order of the scientific method, what each part of that order is, like what you do in that part, and then like the variables. So that's like independent, dependent variable, controlled variable, so on and so forth. So just expand. What I would do is just expand on each of these on a like separate piece of paper, or if you want to just type it in when you download it. So that's the study guide that's available. Let's see, other things. So I do have a YouTube playlist that I create for Bio 111, and it's in order for what we studied. So it goes chapter 1, chapter 3, and then chapter 5, chapters 4, 7, and 8. So it's in order. You can watch it in order. You can skip to the videos that you're shaky on, like maybe you don't remember what a phylogenetic tree is, so just watch that video. I think videos are really helpful. But if you don't want to watch a video and you want to ask me a question, you could always ask me in email, or when we finish talking about the details of the midterm, I can answer questions as well. Okay, let me pull. Whoops, too far. Okay, so what we're going to do is take a look at some short answer questions. So that might have given you a slight heart attack when you saw that. So we're going to take a look at some. These are some that I've pulled from past midterms. You won't see this question on your midterm. That's why I put it on here. I had to take one out because it was on your midterm. But this is a question. You won't see this particular question on your midterm. This is just an example. So here's the question. It says, with regard to enzymes, why are vitamins necessary for good health? Give examples. So these two students, they got a 1 out of 5 potential points. Just first glance at how short their answer is. So this is just two sentences. This one's one sentence. So they may not have fit everything in there that they needed to in just 1 or 2 sentences. So student 1 says vitamins perform hundreds of tasks in the human body, making them almost essential for life. They aid in one huge area for humans, and that is in health. Heath. Okay. So number 1 is the grammar. Number 2, this answer is very vague, and there are no examples. So if it says give examples, make sure you give examples, especially if give examples is only the second of 2 sentences in the question. Probably worth like half the question, right? So vitamins do perform lots of tasks, but it's not saying like what they actually do. The second student kind of did the same thing, right? Enzymes and vitamins, which are not, these 2 things should be switched, are good for our health because they build our immune system, which is not necessarily true, helping our body function better. So yeah, they do help our body function better, but again, very vague. So they did give an example, but their example wasn't true. So let me show you 2 really good answers. So one answer is obviously very long. The other one is kind of condensed. But what you will notice is very specific, right? So I know, because they said, but most vitamins act as coenzymes and cofactors. That was exactly what we had talked about in class. So I know that they were listening, and I know that they understood what vitamins are and what they're used for, right? Enzymes catalyze many important reactions, so it's critical. So they gave that specific example. I said that was a good enough example for that. The second student here, or student number 4, he was very, very specific, and he went on to give many examples, so if you want to take the time to read through. But vitamins used to speed up the metabolism. He did have a grammatical issue there, but I didn't take off points because the rest of his answer kind of made up for that. So if you give specific examples, you will probably get the majority of the points. If you give specific examples and I can definitely see that you know what you're talking about, like this student here, you will probably get 5 out of 5 points. But if you're very vague and you don't give examples, you're not going to get very many points. So I pretty much gave them 1 point each for somewhat true information. Okay. So you get a point for trying, pretty much. So down here it says use complete sentences. They use specific nouns. They answered all parts of the question. So some of the questions that you get might have, 2 different parts. So with regard to enzymes, why are vitamins necessary for good health? So answer that, and then go back, read the question a second time, and then make sure your answer supports everything that the question is asking. So if you want to practice writing one, I have one here. So this is what we did in class last time I taught Bio 111, which might have been last fall when I taught it in person. So this is a short answer question. Select 2 items that biologists agree are necessary in order to consider an organism alive. So that's one part. The second part, for each, give an example of a non-living object that otherwise fits the definition of alive. So what you should do first is kind of plan out, like, okay, to be alive, there's 6 different characteristics that an organism has to have. So let's just list those. And then some examples that are not alive, but they have some of these characteristics, like let's just list those. And then try to piece that together into complete sentences. So we came up with this answer. For something to be considered alive, it must have all of the following properties. So we listed them. Non-living things may have 1 or more of the properties, but not all of them. So, for example, a smartphone is non-living, but it has order, and it can even adapt to light intensity. A tornado is non-living, but it can grow and develop. So you see what we did there. So this would be a 5 out of 5 answer that we wrote. And you can see that it answered all parts of the question and used specifics in the answer. Okay, so that's all I ask for. Answer all parts of the question, use specifics, make it seem like you know what you're talking about. More detail is always better than less. So if you have to write like a page worth of information, then write a page worth if that's what makes you feel better. You'll more than likely get more points if you add more information, as long as it's correct. So this is just summing up what we did. So make sure you read back over your answer and read back over the question. So you may have missed something in the question, and if you just reread the question, you will catch that, and hopefully you saved yourself from missing a few points. Because remember, short answer questions are 5 points each. You have 3 to answer, so you have a total of 15. Now, I don't give you just 3. I do give you, I think it's 5. Yes, I gave you 5 to choose from. So just pick 3 of those 5 that you're comfortable with and answer based off of those. And you'll see on the final, or you'll see on the midterm that where to put your answer and where to put the question that you're answering, or you just put like which number. So it's pretty self-explanatory when you see it. So again, you have five to choose from, but you have to pick 3 of those 5. All right, multiple choice. Oh, are there any questions before we get on to the multiple choice part? Any questions about the short answer questions? Just keep in mind that you do have 2 hours to complete the midterm. Don't wait until the last minute to start on them. I would try to answer them as soon as I begin the midterm if I were you. Okay, multiple choice. So 1.2 points per question. And I did it that way because it totals up to like 99. So what to expect? You have 70 multiple choice. You have most of your multiple choice questions will have 4 answer choices. Some might have 5 or some might have 3, but most of them have 4. You do have one question that's like select all that apply. And then you have another question where you have to choose the answer from drop-down menus. So it's kind of like matching. I probably should have typed that in here. But yeah, so you do have one question from the 70 that's select all that apply, and you have another question that's like matching. But the rest are typical multiple choice. And you'll see where it says select all that apply, and you'll see the drop-down menu. So you'll know it when you see it. The amounts of the questions are proportionate to the chapter. So chapter 7 was really long. The cellular respiration chapter was really long. So you're going to have a lot of questions from that chapter. So make sure you spend a little bit more time on that chapter versus others. Now, let's see, like chapter 8 that we just covered on photosynthesis, a little bit shorter, but you know, not as many questions as chapter 7, but you'll still have a good amount. Questions, I do pull questions from your like assignments, labs, quizzes, readings, polls, and I make them up on my own. You will see some images that we've shared in the PowerPoint on the midterm. So the best way to study, again, is just to use the study guide. You can also go on Tutor and look at those reds and yellows. And if you know what I mean, when you log into Tutor, on the right-hand side, it says where you're struggling, where the red and yellows are, and you can click on those to revisit them so that you can just focus on those. Because typically the greens are things that you understand and that you have down pat, whereas the reds and yellows are things that you need help on. So I would use that. Other things that you can use, of course, are like YouTube videos that I showed you, and quizzes and Quizlet as well. And I'm in the process of making a quizzes review for the midterm, and I'll share that when I've completed it. I was hoping to have it done for the lecture, but I don't. I'm sorry. Okay. How to ace the multiple choice. So since this is on Moodle, what you can do, I know this is the third bullet, but what you can do is click that flag button next to the question, and that will let you know when you go to finish that you haven't answered that question yet. So what I would do is, like, if you get to a question and you just don't understand it or you can't wrap your mind around it, don't spend a lot of time on that question. Hit the little flag button and move on to the next question. That way you're not stressing yourself out or wearing yourself out, and then you're not spending a ton of time on that question and not so much time on other questions that are worth the same amount of points. So all the multiple choice are worth the same, so don't spend a lot of time on just one. Make sure you read the question carefully. There might be one key word that decides the answer in the question, and then there might be one key word in each answer that decides what answer is correct as well. Make sure you try to eliminate some of the answer choices. Of course, that's pretty typical. Make sure you review your answers before hitting that final submit button. So again, you have 2 hours to take the exam. And if you're at like 90 minutes, an hour and a half, and you have 30 minutes left, but you're finished, you've gone through the whole exam, just go back through and make sure for one, you've answered all the questions, and 2, that you like your answers. Okay, you only get one shot on the final or on the midterm. Oh, midterm. So make it a good one. Remember, it's worth 17.5%. Okay. Questions about the multiple choice section? No. If you do have questions, you can type or talk. Doesn't matter. What I do want to see, or what I do want to let you know or reiterate again, is just to study now so that you have time during the exam and you can answer the questions quickly so that you don't run out of time, right? So study now, put in some hard work now, and make sure you learn the stuff that you may have forgotten or didn't do so well on before, so that when you get to those questions, you're like, oh yeah, now I know what that's asking.